Welcome back to the next installment of Impact Show. So over the past 7 years, I've been doing these killer interviews with entrepreneurs, founders that have compelling stories where they face adversity and they have some sort of innovation impact in what they do. And I can't think of a better interview than the co-founders of h.Wood Group. I've got John Terzian and Brian Toll, two of the impresarios of hospitality here in Newport Beach, which needs a lot of help. We'll get to that in a second. But that being said, today's very special too because I'm doing this interview with the IEC. I founded this group with Kevin Maloney, one of my great friends, another visionary entrepreneur from the capital markets and fintech, and now he's leading iTrust Capital. And together we combined our networks and created this impressive organization of over 170 founders, including Palmer Luckey. We just toured Palmer's incredible facility, and when we can mix hospitality with military and defense AI, that's what IEC is all about. So for me, it's about unpacking these stories and about learning to our group on the things that they do and take a little bit of their genius and apply it to our everyday life and business and in our personal lives. With that, also, I want to give credit to Bree Jacoby, one of our founding IEC members who did introduce me to Brian Toll. And just like that, a bromance was made. We totally hit it off on text. I never met him. He never met me until just a few months ago when I was at Delilah, Las Vegas, where several of you have said, hey, get me in. And I said, give me a second. And then he texted me right back saying, in. And that power is incredible because instantly lives are changed and experiences are created. And we're very honored to have this partnership with h.Wood Group, bring him to Orange County, and to do an interview. So I know a lot about you guys, so maybe you could tell us a little bit about your background, how you guys met, and how you got into the business of hospitality genius.
Sure, go for it.
Let me go?
Yeah.
Thank you, by the way, for having us. Appreciate it. We both were born and raised in Los Angeles, which I think is a key aspect on why and what we're doing. It's a key thing. We both went to USC, another key aspect. For myself, I happen to be in two different worlds my whole life, which played into how we kind of are building this together. I was an athlete. I was a walk-on football player at SC. I think I was like sixth string, but I was on the team. And I was also an artist. I got into college on art and fine art and stuff. And so I always had different pockets of people. And I was never going to get in a game at SC, but I was good at the recruiting part. And so they had me kind of putting players together and doing that. So I built this kind of promotion events company during college. At the same time, he was kind of doing a similar thing right after college. And we kind of came together when I was working for a guy named DJ AM. He was the first celebrity DJ. Looking back on it, no one knew DJs could be a thing. I got out of law school and told my parents that I was going to work for a DJ, and I think they were extremely confused. Thank God I have some supportive people. But truth be told, I actually couldn't get a job. I didn't pass the bar. I was extremely down on myself in a lot of ways, and this was where I was like, it gives me an outlet. I can be creative. And one of the things was the first thing we did with him, that DJ AM, was to create a nightclub around him as a hub. And that's when, at the time, Brian had a massive promotion and event company, and brought him in and said, help me with this. And then we broke from there and said, let's do our own. We can do it better than anyone else. We knew everything that was going on in LA and the landscape of hospitality. And the mantra that we had then, we still have today, which was this: take it to the next level in every aspect of you do, in details of service and design and the extra outside of the four walls of a place. And we build places for our friends and their friends and friends of friends, and it's like one big kind of network that we've kind of created. And so I always say what we're doing is not about it's not about like the pouring of a drink or the food. We're kind of hubs for places, and I think that's what's separated ourselves. Did I miss anything?
No, I think that's good background, and that was 2006 or 7, so we're talking a long time ago. Yeah. When John and AM said we should do this together and create one hub for all of our friends and friends of friends. And so the first place we opened was called the h.Wood, hence the company name. And that was at the side of the Hollywood and Highland Center in 2007. Yeah. I think we've opened 20 or 25 places together since, and so that to me was a starting point and a springing off point, and it was supposed to be the next greatest nightclub. I think we were out of business actually in 9 months, a year.
Pretty big
raised $2 million from friends and family and lost every penny.
Right.
Yeah.
And what we found is we were really, really good at filling the place and getting people there and having the right people there, and really bad at operating the place and treating it like a business and knowing when to have food, when to not have food, and how much staffing and how much security. And I think we didn't really understand being at the side of a mall and having to pay triple net on security and all these things. And so you learn as you go along. And we've been much smarter about it as we move forward and brought the right people on board to do the things that we don't do well, right? Where we tried to run our own events and bring in our own things. Now we have a whole events team and we have a whole marketing team and an operations team. And I think as we've matured and grown older, we've really tried to stay more in the restaurant space as well. I think that's our sweet spot.
So let me hit on that raising money part, because this show is watched by thousands of entrepreneurs. When you're raising money that's not yours, you're on the hook.
Yep.
Now you have another person living in the room.
Yep.
Tell us a little bit about how that failure happened, but you're able to overcome that and still operate and get to where you're at now.
Well, I can say the number one thing that we've always done naturally, and thank God we did, is we always are in everything for the long game. So you can't predict success or failure, as all of you guys, as you know, but you can. It's how you handle yourself. So you be above board at all times, and I think that's how we handled every aspect. Our first place, as we mentioned, h.Wood, colossal failure. It wasn't because we did anything cutting corners. I don't even think we took salaries at the time. I mean, we were as above board as possible.
Sure.
Just opened in 2008.
We were a little ahead of our
crash,
time too. I mean, we did something. We took an old Burger King and we were putting in Warhol factory like windows, and like we went overboard on how to do it. We've learned from all of that.
Sure.
You know, you had to recite a poem to get in the door. Like I mean, it was a little out there, you know. But it's you got to push those limits. That experience to this day, along with many others along the way, is almost like a good version of PTSD for us. Like we learned every aspect from it, and you keep going. And I always say got into all this because I ended up going to the entrepreneur school at SC, and I always say I didn't even know the word entrepreneur growing up. I only had teachers and lawyers in my family, but in my heart I've always been an entrepreneur, because you have to have that. You never get too high with the high or low at the lows. You just have to be persistent. So we just stayed persistent. We were never going to do anything else other than this. And luckily we maintained those friendships of investors, and we're able to rebuild and then get to the next level. And
that gets into another question of mine. So 2007, 2008, you're getting into hospitality, entertainment, club nightlife. Back when I used to go out in LA, Sam Nazarian was running a lot of these clubs and nightclubs. How do you even scratch the surface of something like that, coming straight out of college? And what sort of competitive factors were you up against, and how did you overcome those?
I think that's kind of what inspired us, right? While we were at SC, we used to go up to the clubs in Hollywood, and you're right, they were mostly his. And then after we graduated, we were throwing parties and promoting at places, and mostly his. And I found John was working with AM, and so outside of SBE, but as two guys that grew up in LA, we kind of wanted to be surrounded by like the upper echelon of LA, right? So we said, you know what, we liked the way the clubs were prior to SBE, which were tough doors, tough to get in. You sort of had to be, someone to be on that list and to get in. And so we said, we can do a hybrid where we have really great places and great service and everything that SBE had, but also run a tight door and care who's in there and cater to the celebrities and cater to the, LA locals. Our whole, ethos was great places for our network. That's what we care about. Start small, build from there. I don't think we ever set out to build a hospitality company. It was just those four walls, and let's fill it the way we know how to fill it. And I think that really struck a chord with the right people. So we got all the best birthdays and all the best events and buyouts. It was really amazing to see that people really rallied behind us.
And was there a tipping point, a moment that you guys remember as partners, like, whoa, the tide is shifting? Like the old school is now becoming the new school, and it's coming in our direction. We're building our own economy here.
I honestly think it took a few years. I think
Took a while.
Yeah, I think our first place we learned a lot. I think it took sticking with it and changing and growing and opening more. I think when I really started to feel it was when we opened Bootsy Bellows, which was 2012. So we're talking 4 or 5 years of, and probably 3 or 4 places in between of having some success, some financial success, but not the big press and success that we grew to know. I think Bootsy Bellows set us apart. We partnered with David Arquette on it. Right out of the gate, we had unbelievable press, lines down the street, people begging to do events there, begging to come in for nightclub nights, developers coming to us saying, wow, I want to work with you guys, brands coming to us saying, I love the crowd you bring and everything you do. Can we hire you to bring people to our events? And I think that's when we really said, wow, we're doing something right. We're correct in sticking with our guns and doing it our way because people are taking notice.
I'd say probably similar. I think for me, I think our turning point was more with Delilah in LA, only because we started in nightlife, but at the end of the day, neither one of us were never nightlife people. That isn't our end goal, or wasn't, and we knew we wanted to get into restaurants, management deals, hotel deals. And no one wanted to let us. So even with the success of Bootsy Bellows, and we had several actually other nightclubs, when we were going to build what became, kind of invented this world of this notch above a restaurant, which was going to become the Nice Guy, which was our first restaurant. We couldn't get a single investor to agree to us. I mean, it took some serious things to the point where they pulled out if it wasn't going to be nightlife-y. And so we just stuck to our guns and did it. And I think that's when we created our little world. And then immediately after, we were like, we need to do a little bit grander version, the supper club version, which became Delilah. And I think that's when for myself, started to say, hey, we can build onto something very serious here, into a luxury hospitality company, which is what our focus is today.
So as we get closer and closer to today, because where you guys are today is clearly something I'm excited to share with those that aren't familiar with h.Wood Group. But along the way, as you're opening restaurant over restaurant, everyone knows the restaurant industry or hospitality is one of the toughest to be sustainable and successful in. I mean, you hear about, 1 of every 2 restaurants shut down in 2 years. What's that variable? I mean, for those that want to start a restaurant or get into this stuff, what are the variables that you look at to say this is a worthy investment?
It's tough. I think a lot of it comes down to the operators themselves. Same with any business.
Comes down to people.
And track record. I would be hesitant to invest in any first-time restaurant operator.
Sorry, guys. Our first time guys.
I think you learn along the way, and you have to go through that experience to see what works and what doesn't. And I think they have to do something different. You can't just say, I'm going to open my version of an Italian restaurant, right? It's like, well, what exactly is your version? How are you going to be different from every other Italian restaurant? So for example, when we did our first restaurant, The Nice Guy, we knew we wanted Italian food, but we said, you know what, there isn't a place in LA at least that can be a restaurant, but can also be a little bit more fun and have a DJ, go a little bit later, and a place where people can
live music.
And have live music for people eating, but people can also go for dinner elsewhere but come for drinks. Historically, restaurants were restaurants. They were closed at 10 o'clock or 10:30, and then you went to bars and nightclubs. And there were a couple of clubs that tried to take over restaurants, or they'd pull the tables out and okay, now we're a nightclub. And that just didn't work. It's very weird to be eating and then servers are carrying tables out over, right? So we said if we do the tables at the right height and the lights at the right level and the music at the right level, we think we can be all in one. Right. And that's when John was saying we could not raise money for this because people said, you're crazy, right. You can't do everything for everyone, like choose your lane. And we said, no, this is our lane. We really believe in this concept. And so
you gotta know your crowd, you gotta know your clients. It's no different from any business.
Right, exactly. And let's talk a little bit about your clients. I mean, most restaurant owners would look at their restaurant owners as customers, right? You're in, you're out.
Yep.
But you guys treat everyone who comes into any one of your establishments as like a member.
Yeah.
You know, there's a relationship there. There's a Rolodex. It's very different than anything I've ever seen. I mean, there's restaurants that are hard to get into, but you can always get into.
Yep.
But you guys have some magic and some aura involved with all your properties where it's a guest list or it's a membership, but you're also dealing with the top of the food chain. These are creatives, these are tech, these are celebrities and agents. I've experienced it having dinner with you guys at Bird Street Club. I've never seen anything like this. And this is right here in Los Angeles, and it's such a stealth operation, yet anyone who knows Bird Street knows what to expect, and it yields so much value to them. Tell us a little bit about the guest list approach and how you created that magic, that differential for h.Wood.
Well, I think overall it was genuinely natural for us. So people trying to do it like in a non-organic way, it's hard. It's our backgrounds, like I said from the beginning, being born and raised in Los Angeles, and doing our core business here and kind of growing it. And actually genuinely, I mean, I genuinely like people. Like this is, to me, like what I like doing and having people know each other. And so when we opened Nice Guy, as he was saying earlier, because I think that's where it really started, was we're like, how are we separating ourselves? Well, we created, and to this day, we called it, I think we're still trying to trademark it, but is the Rolodex, which is truly like what it is. And you, to this day, you have to be on the Rolodex to get an actual reservation at it. Now, the Rolodex is big, and if you are looking at it in a smart financial way, there's a lot of data we have on each person, about thousands of people. And what that is we get to do this extra level of touch of the favorite drink, the anniversary, something going good or bad in their day, whatever it might be, because at the end of the day, every little thing to have someone want to come back or experience a great evening, whether it's for a drink or dinner or an entire night, is all that really matters to me on an every single night basis to us. And that's really how we've gone about it. And then we repeated that with Delilah, and then as you go on, now we have a lot of places, as well as its own members place. And you translate that to, you know, a larger portfolio, and we've created actually an entire division, a team of people that actually handle those, almost like a concierge within a hospitality group.
Right, 100%.
Yeah, and I think part of it was out of necessity as well. Neither one of us knows how to cook at all, right? And neither one of us has any background in restaurants. We were bar, nightclub, events, bringing celebrity to party guys. And so when we wanted to open a restaurant, we sort of had to say, what are we going to do different, and how are we going to get the demand there so that people don't say, oh, these are just nightclub guys opening a restaurant, which doesn't ever seem to work. And so we said, you know what, in order to drive up the demand, we'll make it very hard to get in. You kind of have to know us, and then it doesn't matter if it's busy at first or not, because we know what we're trying to be. And it's okay if it's not slammed every night. Whereas some restaurants, if you were to go in the first month or two and it's not busy, it's like, oh, this place is just never going to work. Where with us, it's only for our friends anyway. Rent was cheap. And so that list and that Rolodex established that brand and really established our company. And now it's grown, and now everybody wants to be on that Rolodex.
The power of that Rolodex is
it's
very
wild.
impressive.
It's wild when you tell people you can't come in.
When you told me the pre-applicant wait list to Bird Street's Club, that's impressive. Okay, I mean, that's the demand is a one of one. So I'm going to try and stump you guys, because I have some 20-year-olds that work at my company. We were talking about the Rolodex. A lot of them looked at me and didn't understand what Rolodex was, because that's not even a term that some of your rappers and A-list celebrity clients. What is the term for Rolodex for the 20-year-olds?
What's the term Rolodex 20-year-olds?
Yeah.
iPhone, maybe?
Well,
database?
Yeah, I mean, for you guys. So back in the day, you would have like a black book. That was your Rolodex of people you could call, and you had phone numbers stored. Yeah, now it's in an iPhone, but we liked the word because it was that old school term, right? And
Is there an answer to this, by the way?
No, because we were all stumped. We had
No,
Google
there
images
isn't
open,
any. There's
and we
nothing
couldn't find a
equivalent.
young version word of the word
It's just all
Rolodex.
on your database.
You got
It's
one?
on-
Kind of, but that doesn't sound very cool.
Not
That
as
you're on our
cool.
contact
Right.
list. The Rolodex, it just sounded great. That you're either on our Rolodex
Right.
or you're not,
Yeah.
and so it sort of fit.
So let's talk a little bit about like internet marketing and how you guys have this switch that, I mean, you have big pop-up venues now. You have venues, I mean, we just came back from Las Vegas to see your 45,000 square foot tent.
Yep.
How do you just flip a switch and then all of a sudden the place is filled? And it's not just filled with people. These are influential individuals. And it's not just with financial means, it's with social impact. It's got a vogueness to it. How do you do that in such a short amount of time? What is that magic?
Practice.
Well, I can tell you this. It appears like a switch to me. It's definitely not. It's also taken a decade plus of the background of building up to what you're talking about today with it, which is our experiential marketing side. So we do a combo of things where there's about, I'd say, 6 or 7 major events around the world that we do and that we have our presence at, and we're probably the biggest. And you talk about Coachella, Super Bowl, Formula One, Film Festival,
Art
4th
Basel.
of July, Art Basel, like those types of things. And we marry that with large sponsors that we repeatedly work with, brands that underwrite it. And then the key to us is that we've built up this Rolodex where we know and have X amount of clients that build off of that. So it's a combo of our social media, but actually social media today is, there's so much out there, it's so saturated. If you don't have the real like hand-to-hand personal email, text, phone call type of database, you can't fill a 45,000 square foot place. So you have to have a real team. So we have this team of people under us at h.Wood that we've built over the last decade. That entire job, along with us, obviously, is to turn that switch on, if you will. So, for us, I would say that switch you're talking about takes us 4 or 5 days, and you're talking 3,000, 4,000 person type of elite event, and we mix it up. It can be a 100 person invite only. It could be a 10,000 person, type thing. We try to keep it small. Our world is luxury, so we're really in that smaller vein in that regard, and so. That's kind of like our background on how we do it.
Right. Any thoughts on
Yeah, I think we're also known for it now. It's to the point where a month before we were even set at Super Bowl, we had people reaching out saying, "Hey, what are you doing for Super Bowl this year? I want to make sure I'm invited to your event." And so it's a different level now from when we started. But I think even back then, the real secret is letting the right people know early.
Yeah.
Malcolm Gladwell and Tipping Point. I think there are connectors in this world where there are certain people like yourself where if you know that this is happening, you're going to tell 20 other people, and there's many versions of you, right? And so it's not always on social media. I think for us, like John said, the hand-to-hand, the texting, the phone calls, the letting the right influencers know, and the traditional kind of influencer who really have power, so that you're telling the right agents who are telling all of their clients and the people at the agencies. And so it's we do it the old school way, where I think you had to come up in that. Where we started, there was no social media, right? Facebook didn't exist, and so and Instagram, and make phone calls. There was no texting, so we learned that way, and so I think we still have our little Rolodex database of people that we know. Anytime we're doing something, let the right people know, and then it sort of goes from there.
Talk to us a little bit about, here you use social media, but in your establishments you can't take photos. Tell us that fine balance of protecting the identity of your patrons, but at the same time leveraging the power of h.Wood to get people in the room.
I think that's a big challenge for us. I think it limits our exposure. I think there's a lot of people that actually don't know Delilah, or especially they don't know that Delilah and the Nice Guy and Bootsy Bellas and some of our venues are owned by the same group, because we don't allow social media. So it gets us the right people in the room. We protect the celebrities. We never call Us Weekly or TMZ when they're there. We actually walk the celebrities in the back door to protect them, which goes against what every other restaurant group would do. But we do that, and it's gotten us to where we are. And so it is a challenge. It would be much easier to take a picture of whoever, Leo in the room eating a burger. I think everyone would want to come then, but he would never come back, and we would lose what makes us special. So yeah, we're sort of not big when it comes to marketing.
I think it's just the long game that we play,
Totally.
and I don't think it's just we didn't do it just on celebrities. People seem to think that it makes a safer space. I mean, I can't stand people taking photographs with their birthdays and stuff that's going on. It like makes a much better experience when you're dining and being there, and so it's created a better environment. And when we went to Vegas, sure enough, it's been like the key thing is to not allow photographs there. And it just makes everyone have a better experience there. You can text, you can be on your phone if you need to, but the whole photo thing is out of hand.
It's also annoying in a dark room to see a photo flash every 2 seconds of people trying to get pictures.
So I just, all those experiences I've had in your places where I'm not using my phone. I just remember it more because I was more present in the conversation. You've also done a great job, and I notice sometimes at Bird Street, you guys are in the room. And you guys will see a couple people where there's a good potential introduction, and you'll marry that sometimes.
Yes.
And that I think has some magic to it as well, because a lot of restaurant operators aren't really thinking about the people in the room and how they can benefit each other in a way that's not salesy.
Yes.
And I think that's a power you guys have. That's a one of one. As we round up this interview, I have a couple more questions. Then we'll end up, and we'll let our audience ask you any questions on their mind. Have you guys on your way? But we just came back from Super Bowl, and as I was going to bed, I mean, this is what my wife and I do. We watch the news. It's kind of a cool thing, right? It's like date night every night. And on Channel 5 News at 10, they said 16 million people are going to call in sick tomorrow. And I'm thinking, oh shit, I got the best interview. If these guys call in sick, it's totally justifiable, right? Totally understand after the week you guys have had in Vegas, but you're here. Totally impressive, because I got to experience what you guys do behind the scenes. It was a humbling experience because we're now working together. To be at the table with you, just watching how you guys operate, because I think a lot of the success is the human talent you have working in your machine. You guys have been able to attract some of the most talented workforce, which in and of themselves are influencers in their own way.
Totally.
How did that dynamic work as far as bringing these people into your organization? And then tell us about the last week at Super Bowl and how you guys were able to pull off that tent. You're the only person I know that has a tent that could sell tables for $150,000. So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I can say in being 20 years of being partners, I don't think either one of us is called in sick ever.
Okay.
So we work, and I think that's the name of the game.
Right.
And in terms of talent in the event, I'll start with the event. But we built a 45,000 square foot tent across the street from the Wynn. When Super Bowl was announced in Vegas, we obviously have Delilah there. We always do a really big Super Bowl party. We did it last year in Scottsdale and the year before here in LA. We had Drake last year. In LA, we had Drake one night and Justin Bieber the other. So we go big for Super Bowl. It's a massive time for us. So we were looking for spaces and found this empty lot right across the street from the Wynn, and it was perfect. And so we did 3 nights. We had Cash App on Thursday with Kendrick Lamar performing. We had Taco Bell as the headline sponsor Friday with David Guetta and Future performing. And then Saturday night, we had Jack Harlow and Kate Trinata and Zach Bia, who we manage on Saturday. So 3 tremendous nights, a lot of work. It probably took 6 months to build this thing and create it, and then it all comes down today. So it's just wild to see.
Unless anyone wants to rent it.
Last minute.
Never know.
We'll start tomorrow working on New Orleans for next year. And
No, we start
on we go.
We start on Coachella. That's our big one.
That's awesome.
And on attracting talent, we're in a fun business, right? So there's always people that want to do the events we do and be on the market. It's really marketing and the events. There's no shortage of resumes. It's actually hard to find restaurant managers and things like that.
Right.
Because it's long hours. We're not a typical restaurant. We have our guys there from 6 p.m. like a normal restaurant till 2 in the morning, whereas most restaurants, you get that 5-6 hour shift. Yeah. So it is a challenge to find those positions, but at corporate, we have amazing people. And I think every day is different. Every day is fun and interesting. We've done it for so long that we lose sight of it, but the team was texting me, thanking me yesterday for bringing them to Vegas and letting them be a part of it. It's crazy. They work their ass off, and they're texting the boss, thanking them for the experience. Right. Which is just, as an entrepreneur, it's amazing to see, and makes me really think we're doing something right, because we lose sight of it, right? For us, it's work.
Yeah, and even for us, just being a small part of an extension of your team, it was an experience for all of us. So we're all talking this is unbelievable. For me, it wasn't just impressive on what I saw in the tent, but just that lunch we had at the Wynn before all this started. That was lighting the fuse for you guys. But to just see you guys in your operation mode, Kevin and I always talk about grit. We're all about grit and working through impossible circumstances to create, outcomes. And here you've got an NFL legend sitting with us at lunch and a celebrity, but you guys are unfazed by it. This is just part of the day-to-day.
Yep.
And it's just, the constant communication and just being able to work your human resources, but also knowing that it's like an hourglass, like you're minutes, hours away from the big first event of 3. And these are colossal size events. This isn't like a restaurant.
Right.
This was like walking into SoFi under a tent, because I was with Carson at the Chargers. He goes, holy shit, this looks like SoFi in here. I said, and they built this in a matter of weeks. So that sort of, attitude and approach is enviable, because I think a lot of entrepreneurs give up. They'll see something that big and just say, what, even though we have the partners and the resources, I don't think I have it in me to see this all the way through. And that's something, pretty powerful for the modern day entrepreneur. My last question, and then we'll end this interview, is what's next? h.Wood seems like they're on a tear. What's coming up for you guys in the next, year or so? What's your outlook?
I think there's a few things. I think being extremely focused and streamlined is important to us right now. So we've identified Delilah and the Nice Guy, and Bird Streets Club as our kind of key brands, our global brands that we're expanding on. So we're opening those, we already have, but we're opening those in key cities around the world. And I think that's a massive focus of ours.
Well, with that, I present to you Brian and John, and I'm delighted, honored, and thrilled to have this interview. There are a few ththings where I'm really excited to get up in the morning. Today I'm fired up. My kids are like, what's going on? I'm like, I'll explain to you after it's all done. But it's those sort of stories that really create a lot of influence to the people that we represent and people in our network. So we look forward to adding some more pages to your Rolodex. And for everyone in this room and everyone watching, we want access to these restaurants, these clubs, these experiences. Let us know. We'll connect the dots and have that over to you. Well, with that, I present to you the h.Wood Group, and we'll be back at you next time.